Today, we are joined by an incredible woman who has been a pivotal part of my healing journey. And I'm so excited to interview her. She's just done phenomenal things in the world, developed a process called The Journey, which we'll get into. And I'm very excited to welcome Brandon Bays. Brandon, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I've so been looking forward to this.
So, Brandon, you have an amazing story, but there's so much more I want to talk about.
Yeah.
More about the process and what happens in the body. So, for those of you who don't know Brandon's story, please go read her book. The link is in the show notes. Brandon, so how does trauma get stuck in the body?
Well, what science will tell us is that when we are at a peak of a strong emotion, what normally happens, we either go into shock or we shut down. And when that shutdown happens, it releases a quantifiable biochemistry into the bloodstream, which will go to certain cell receptors and block those cells, rendering those cells incapable of communicating with the rest of the cells in the body. And if over time illness happens, it happens where the cells are blocked. And what's also conversely known to be true is when we feel our emotions very naturally and, like a child does, our cell receptors remain open. And so what happens is when we're in the face of a crisis, let's say you're in a car accident and you know exactly what happens. You freeze. There's that fright, and that shutdown automatically happens, and it releases that biochemistry. And so that trauma of that terror, that fear for your life, all that you were thinking at the time, all that you were feeling at the time, when you froze and you went into shock, that gets released in the bloodstream and it goes to certain cellular locations and it gets buried inside the body. And then when those cells die off, they pass on the programming, the consciousness of the trauma onto the next cell generation. So the next cell generation is born as an exact replica of the previous cell generation. And so these traumas get passed on from one cell generation to the next to the next. So when I was diagnosed with that basketball-sized tumor, the doctor said to me, it probably just started as one cell when you were about 8 years old. And I had experienced extreme childhood trauma of violence and abuse. And so what happens is that cell replicates and becomes two cells. And then by the time, I'm 39 years old and, they're replicating exponentially. And I ended up with this massive tumor. And so these traumas get buried inside. And I've been noticing for myself that, let's say you sprain an ankle, or even you break an ankle. Have you ever noticed that you tend to keep breaking or spraining that same ankle over again? And it's because the consciousness is stored, the muscle memory and the cell memory are stored in that area. And so what the journey gives you the opportunity to do is to go on a journey inside, to get to the exact cellular locations where these old buried traumas are stored, and to go through a very deep process of releasing that stored trauma, letting it go, coming to an understanding of what happened to you at the time, coming to a place of forgiveness of yourself, of life, of whoever else was involved in that cell memory, so that when new cells are born, they're born devoid of that old consciousness as new regenerative cells. So that was my experience. And of course, with now it's been over 30 years since that experience happened, where I healed from that basketball sized tumor in only 6.5 weeks. And right now this work is being used for trauma and for stress all over the world. And so, for instance, let's say you're going into an operation where you have uh, let's say a heart operation, and you're in that heart operation, and when you get done in the hospital in Israel, you go into a week long excuse me, a week long recovery center, where in that center you undergo a journey process to get to the emotional root cause of what co-created the illness in the first place. Same with the oncology hospital, same with working with multiple sclerosis and fibromyalgia, that they're able to get to the emotional corollary of what co-created the illness or disease. And so it's not just about my story, it's about the hundreds of thousands who've used this work around the world since then.
I mean, I'm an example of that. I mean, I love your work. The um, the first time, I think we've spoken about this, when the first time that I read your book, which was so weird, like a weird. It's always so true the when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Because I grew up in South Africa, my aunt said to me, "We went to hear you speak." However many years ago that was. I don't remember it. And then I was gifted your book also by somebody who really read her book right when she was starting her healing journey, which was a few years before. She's like, "I can't believe I never gave this to you before, or I never recommended it to you before." So and it was incredible, the work. And I've done it, subsequently since then, and had these most profound experiences. But I want to ask you, Brandon, what if you don't have a physical, you don't have the tumor, you don't have a physical corresponding something that's happening in your body, but
Exactly.
having a reoccurrence of a trauma externally?
Absolutely. I mean, it's the kind of thing that any emotion that we feel, it doesn't have to be a trauma experienced. It can be any strong emotion that you feel, and no one gave you a manual how to deal with it. And it can be something so simple like you've got anger stored inside, the body, and you're at the peak of anger, and something happens and you shut down. That biochemistry is released and it gets stored inside. And then let's say you're driving along, a perfectly normal day, and some car cuts you off, and out of nowhere, vroom, up comes the anger. Now, it's not because that person came in the middle of the night and stuck the anger inside of you. All that they did was push your button, and it erupted. That it came up automatically, involuntarily. These old buried cell memories, this old emotional pain. And so I would say about 90% of the people that come to the journey aren't looking necessarily for physical healing. They're looking to come to a place of peace and wholeness in their life. And they know there are areas of our life, that in all of our lives, where we get triggered, where someone says something, they criticize us, and suddenly we freeze and we withdraw, and then we question ourselves and think we're not a good enough person, and we play it over and again in our mind, and we just can't get rid of the criticism that they've said. And what's such a relief about the journey is that programming, is what I would call it, will play throughout your life. Every time you get triggered, that same emotion comes up because it's buried inside your body. And all that person is doing is triggering something that's already there. But what the journey gives you the skills and the method to do is to go on a journey inside to that specific location where they're stored, and to go through a process, not just of releasing the stored emotion, catharting it. There's a lot of work out there that's cathartic. That does not give you completion. That just gives you an immediate sense of release. So the journey is not about just catharting the emotion, releasing it. It's about coming to understand what took place with you at the time that it originally arose for you. What was the other person going through? What was the dynamic playing between the two of you? And you go through a deep process of not only releasing the emotion, but coming to that understanding. And it's only through that understanding that you can finally go inside yourself and offer that forgiveness to that person or that life circumstance or God, if that's your issue, and offer yourself forgiveness. And there's really something quite magical that happens when you come to forgive a life circumstance, another person, or yourself, that's when you and your body, you give yourself permission to finally finish with the story of me and my pain. So that when new cells are born, they're born devoid of that old programming as new regenerative cells. And so when this next situation happens that a car cuts you off, you say, oh, this is New York. This is Joburg. This happens. You're not triggered anymore. And that's the power of getting to the emotional root cause of what's co-creating what's going on in your life now. Most of our reactions are not healthy responses. They're reactions to the stress in our life. And the way that we react is born from the cell memories that are stored inside, whether they be trauma or, I can remember I was standing in front of a room and actually a huge stadium full of people for a spelling bee at 8 years old. And I'd already spelled, I was representing all the third graders in my school, and we brought all the schools in the county together in New York, and all the parents were there, and the students were there, and teachers, and I'd already spelled three difficult words, and then they gave me the easiest words in the English language, the word fleet. But I'd never seen that in any of my children's books. But I had seen the word flea, an insect. And I said, FLEAT, and the whole stadium was hushed. And then it erupted into laughter. Now, no one gave me a manual. How do you deal with everyone you know and you care about laughing at you? And I looked to my mother, who was in the third row, and she shook her head and went as if I was the greatest disappointment in her life. And internally, it was as if a wall just came slamming down inside. And I retreated to the back of the stage with the other losers. And that day I decided I'm so stupid. I'll only ever be a laughing stock. I'll never be good at anything I do. I'll never succeed. And that's how these old negative, self debilitating beliefs get stored inside. You have an incident, not a trauma. This could happen to anybody where they misspell a word in a spelling bee. But what happens is because we weren't taught how to deal with that, we shut down, and then that consciousness gets buried inside. And then the next chance you have to be in some sort of contest, you say, oh no, I'm not any good at this. I can't be good at contests. And I'll never actually be good. I'm not smart enough. People laugh at me because I'm so dumb. And so that's how these emotional issues get stored inside something as simple as a spelling bee.
So, Brandon, if you live in your life, you have these reoccurring experiences, like patterns in your life, but you
Yes.
don't have memories. You don't really have like solid memories of where they would come from, or even having memories of your childhood, let's say. How does the journey work then?
What's so beautiful in part of the journey that I haven't explained, because you asked to speak about the method itself,
Yeah.
one half of the method is going on this journey inside the body, getting to specific cellular locations. But another part of the method is about going down through the layers of the emotions, deep, because you can start with, let's say, anger. Let's say that's the top emotion. But if you really allow it and open into it, you will fall into a deeper emotion, maybe sadness or hurt, and an even deeper emotion of loneliness or devastation. And sometimes you end up going through what I call the unknown zone, where it's like a field of black nothingness. And when you really surrender to that, you end up opening into your own soul, into this vast field of love, of oneness, of peace. that you came in as. And you realize it's been there all along. Only like me, you bought into all the layers that covered it. And so with the journey, it's first predicated on you opening into that, to this that is your own essence, that is the soul, that feels itself to be part of in everything. And this part of you, it makes your heart beat, your eyes shine, your hair grow. That is the infinite intelligence in the body. And so it's my picture keeps going up and down. I don't know why that is with this particular program. But anyway, it's an opportunity to open into that infinite intelligence. And so you're guided by that enlightened awareness that is your own essence. And that is what takes you to those cell memories stored inside. And you might not have a conscious recollection, but the truth is, your soul knows every moment of your existence.
It's so true. Um, I'm just replaying my last experience that I had when I did a physical journey. Um, it was so profound and it was completely unexpected.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'll just get a flash of what happened and then a knowing emotionally of how you felt at that moment. I mean, often we do processes where we'll go back through time, even into the womb, and what we were going through in the womb and what it was like to go through the birthing experience. So the soul remembers, the mind
Yeah.
doesn't consciously remember, but the infinite intelligence knows every single millisecond of your life. And that's what guides you to these cell memories.
So, Brenda, when you were diagnosed with your tumor, you had done so much work beforehand. Do
Yeah.
you think that that had put you in a good place to deal with this so quickly?
You know, I was so skilled and accredited in so many different areas of complementary medicine and alternative health and well-being. And yet at the time, I would say I was at the cutting edge of what was happening at that point in 1993. And it was a time when I had studied and became accredited as a kinesiologist, a herbologist, an iridologist, studied massage, nutrition. I mean, you name every aspect. And even at the time, I was giving the Living Health seminar for Tony Robbins at the time, where I was teaching people how to create vibrant health. And I was feeling myself to really be at the age of 39 at the peak of vibrant health and vitality. And every day I was meditating and I was working out, and I lived at that. I'd moved from New York City, where I'm from, to to Malibu, and so every day I was breathing that fresh sea air. And so I was a vegetarian. 70% of it was fresh and raw fruits and vegetables, the 30% cooked. So supposedly I was doing everything right. I'd done all the work on myself, not just becoming certified in these fields of medical hypnosis and neurolinguistic programming, not just getting certified, but of course you undergo it yourself. And so I thought I was doing everything right. And yet, when my tummy began to grow, I just didn't want to believe it was happening. How could it be happening? I mean, you couldn't have been more healthy. I didn't even have a common cold for 10 years prior to this happening. And so here I was. I had thought I had done everything right. But the truth was, when I finally ended up doing my so called journey process that happened spontaneously, as what I would call a download from grace, and actually got inside the tumor, the cell memory I uncovered there was a cell memory of violent childhood abuse. Now, as a therapist, as you can imagine, I went through 8 years of therapy in New York City working on that. And I thought thought I had come to a place of acceptance. And not only that, but compassion for my family and what they had gone through. That's what my mind had told me. But when I got access to that cell memory and I asked what needs to happen here to complete, I didn't know because I ended up going through the same processes that I've been through in the past of releasing and letting go. And I came to the same place of acceptance that I'd been at since my 20s. And I asked the presence of grace, this omnipresence of source, that enlightened awareness, am I complete? And the simple word spoken was no. And when that word arose inside of me, I was plunged into despair. And something inside of me didn't fight that. I didn't try to analyze it, figure it out, reframe it into something positive. I just let go into the despair and fell into a complete helplessness and hopelessness. And I thought there may not even be any answer. And something let go in that helplessness. And I just surrendered. And I fell into a black nothingness that was everywhere. And I didn't even fight that. I just surrendered. And these pinpricks of light started suffusing the nothingness, bathing me in itself. And I found myself just resting in a vastness of being. I didn't have a name for it. Peace, love. But I felt this was embracing me, holding me, carrying me. And when I asked, and I just prayed, I don't know how to complete. How to complete? I didn't actually expect an answer. The most unexpected moment, the word forgiveness arose. And immediately, my arrogant, cognitive mind said, oh, what difference could forgiveness make? Excuse me, I'm going to have just a
Okay.
sip.
Yeah.
It's dusty in this room. It's coming from we have Saharan dust here in Greece. And so the Saharan dust is coming through the open window. Well, anyway, and so I thought, well, what kind of difference could forgiveness possibly make? And my mind was saying that, but my body and my heart were saying, what have you got to lose by forgiving? And so I attempted to open my heart to forgive. And it hurt because all these years I'd created, Brandon, the enlightened therapist who's come to understand and accept her violent past, this compassionate, noble therapist. And I had to step down off my own self-made pedestal and face down 30 years of pride, dressed up as compassion. And it hurt to face down that much pride. But finally I did. And I opened my whole heart and with all my heart forgave. And while I was forgiving, I realized that tumor had never been clinging to me. I'd been clinging to it. And 30 years of a blame game dressed up as compassion. 30 years of a blame game was finally over. And so that was the beginning of my journey. And I did a few more of these kinds of processes. And within six weeks' time, I ended up back in hospital and I was pronounced textbook perfect clean, completely tumor free.
Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah.
So amazing. So, Brandon, for people who are listening to you talk about this and they're, I have to feel the emotion, I have to go into the despair, into the hopelessness. What do you say to people who are like freaking out about feeling those feelings?
You know, one of the things that happens if life brings you to your knees, you're willing to do whatever it takes. And that is the truth of it. You're willing to stop the fight, stop the running, stop the explaining away or using other people to blame them for how you're feeling. You're willing finally just to stop and to open. Because all of those are strategies for avoidance. And God knows I'm the best at that. At those avoidance strategy, reframe it. We all do that. And a strong emotion comes up. What do? We get on the web, we call a friend, we go to the movies, we start surfing the web, trying to get more knowledge. We do anything to distract ourselves, smoke it away, drink it away, eat it away, anything but feel the emotion. And then life gives you a wake-up call, and it can come in so many forms. It can come in the form of a divorce or a loss of a loved one, or perhaps someone in your family goes off to war. In my case, it came in the form of a serious illness where for one moment you decide it's time to get real. And you crack through whatever facade you've been presenting to the world. And you end up opening down naturally, spontaneously, down through layers of emotions, and ultimately opening into this vast field of love, of light, of peace that is your essence. And the crazy thing is, when you open into your own soul, into your essence, you realize it's been there all along. It feels familiar, only we buy into all the layers that cover it. And after a while, you fall so in love with the truth inside yourself that, like me, you'll do anything to clear whatever blocks you, whatever obscures you, whatever holds you back on any level of being. And I always say, the journey is not for people of casual interest. It's for deep lovers of truth, for people who want to get real, for people who want to be free, for people who sense that there's a greatness inside. You sense it there, but you haven't known, how do I get access to it? The journey gives you the method to get access to that greatness, to the divine potential that you actually came in as, and to clear whatever's blocked it, whatever obscures it, whatever's held you back, whatever lies you've told yourself, whatever limitations you've put, whatever lampshades you put over your light. The journey gives you the ability to clear those lampshades so that this natural radiant presence, which is your essence, can live your life. So it is true. All of us have developed countless strategies to avoid emotions. But then an invitation comes from your soul that it's time to come home. It's time to experience the peace inside, to feel the love that's here, the joy that is your essence, the freedom that is your nature. And when that call home comes, you will find that you'll do anything to clear whatever blocks it so you can live in this freedom, in this love.
Brandon, is this something you can experience on your own?
It can be experienced on your own. And for sure, I've put the process in a book. You can also listen to it online. And the truth is, prior to COVID, I was on the road teaching 44 weeks of the year in the 39 countries that we offer the journey in. So every week I was in a different country. And every week before I stood on stage, I did a journey process because I never wanted to be so arrogant as to say I've got it all handled. Because I know there's more than one cell memory stored in here. And I feel it's a privilege to clear whatever blocks me, whatever shuts me down, whatever lampshades I've put over my light, so that this love that is my essence can live this life. So I've had hundreds of journey processes, and I'll be a student of life to the day I die. I mean, the reason I called it a journey, it's not like you do one process and you're fixed for life. It can happen that you do one process and you heal. And it's called a journey because it's a journey with your soul, clearing whatever blocks, whatever life lessons, whatever karmic lessons. And sometimes we're uncovering issues that aren't even our own. They're generational issues and generational trauma. And so often these days, when I'm working with people, they're things that didn't happen to them, that happened to their mother in World War II, let's say, will show up inside their body. And as a matter of fact, there's a whole field called epigenetics, where it's said, the science of it says that between 4 and 6 generations of trauma can be passed down to this generation. And that's meaning the emotional trauma stored inside your body. And so sometimes the issues you recognize when they're coming up, they're not even yours, they're your mother's, your father's, your grandparents. You recognize them, and yet the journey gives you the opportunity to clear it at a cellular level. So you're not passing on that generational trauma, that generational emotional issue to your children. And so I always say, what have you got to lose but a load of baggage? What have you got to gain from living in yourself as a full expression of your authentic self? There is nothing more thrilling than living fully expressed as yourself.
So, Brendan, I believe that healing is a spiral. So you'll deal with the one specific trauma or something that happens in your life, but then you move around the spiral and you come to it and you view it from now a different perspective because you've peeled the one layer of the onion back. Is
Mhm.
that what happens in the journey? Like once you've cleared this memories of, like you cleared out a specific memory in your tumor, would you have to clear that memory out again?
No, no, I would not. The journey brings you to a place of complete wholeness.
Okay.
And there are other cell memories that may have to do with abuse that are different than that particular cell memory. Or there can be a different aspect of the cell memory. So, for instance, I can remember coming across one cell memory, and one of the things that when we were punished in my household, as a girl, I was stripped naked, and in front of my brothers, I was beaten with a belt and made to repeat things. Now, of course, the first time I visited that cell memory, I was dealing with the rage of being treated like this. But the next time the cell memory came up, I was so shocked that it came again. I needed to deal with the absolute shame of being stripped naked in front of my brothers and being made to repeat these things, that shame. And still, another time, I needed to deal with the forgiveness of what was taking place inside my mother and my father at the time. And so if you have an extreme trauma like that, you can have various phases of it. But in general, when you really clear a full cell memory, that you don't revisit that unless there's some aspect that you haven't faced and cleared. And so you'll come to a place of wholeness, and the guy comes and, cuts you off in the car. And it's just like, ah, this is traffic here. That's what New Yorkers are like that, and you laugh at it. Whereas before, it would really trigger your road rage.
Um, so I have like a few more questions before we end. I want to be respectful of your time and to my listeners. But when you have the road rage and you feel this feeling, at that point, could you like sit with the anger
Yeah,
and release it?
yeah. Absolutely. You not while you're driving, you know, or what you would do is, you might pull aside on the side of the road and stop and open and allow all the anger to come flooding, and not just this anger, but whatever anger's been with you, and just open into it and allow you it inevitably will. If you really welcome any emotion, you will end up in the peace that's inside of you. But most of us, when it comes to emotions, we have one foot on the gas pedal and one foot on the brake. So the rage coming out, and then another part of us is resisting the rage. And it creates friction inside the body. And that resistance to feeling whatever's here. And, let's be honest about it. I mean, let's say you're at work and your boss, he yells at you or she yells at you, and you're completely shocked, humiliated, embarrassed, and in such rage inside yourself. But obviously, that's not the context to open into the rage. So, what I would do in that situation, I would go when I got a moment free to the lavatory, to the restroom, and to sit down, close the door, and just speak to my body and say, okay, there's deep hurt here. I'm devastated. I'm humiliated. I'm furious. And I promise you tonight, when I get home, I will open with you and really allow everything here to be wholly felt and to go down through the layers. And so just to let this rage, this fury, this humiliation know that you are going to get to it, that you're not going to repress it, but that for now is not a circumstance that is not appropriate for it to come out. But it is appropriate for it to come out at home. And then you can just wide open and welcome as if you're a mother and a little kid says to you, Mommy, I'm scared. I'm just so angry. You take this child in your arms and you say, it's okay. We all feel like that. And in the same way, you would do this with your emotions. You'd really open yourself, open your heart and your being, and you'd welcome the emotion. You just say, yes, it's all allowed, it's here, it's welcome. And you open and you just go into the core of it and you stay still in the center of it. And the next emotion will come. And again, just this allowing, this opening, this innocence, this embrace, and you open down through the layers in yourself. Now, the reason I told you earlier, I got a journey process once a week when I was on tour, but I always got it with a journey practitioner because I know, first of all, having given rise to the process and to the countless in-depth work that has occurred since that time, that my mind is very tricky and it could try to escape out of the process. Whereas when I work with somebody, they can hold me in it to a high standard and I can't try to analyze it away or brush it off or pretend it's not here. I have to be completely naked and honest and exposed when I'm working with someone else. So that's why I love to do the journey with someone now. And these days, no matter what, if I need a journey process, I go to a journey practitioner to fully be held, to be at the highest standards of opening and letting go, because you know what it's like. We're all so clever
Yeah.
at escaping feeling what's here.
I know the last time I did it, I did a physical journey with a practitioner at the end of the year, at the end of the last year, and I was trying to do the escape dance.
Uh-huh.
When we actually got into it, it was amazing what happened. So unexpected, and actually had a physical release from it like a few weeks later, which was outstanding. But so, Brendan, can children do this?
I wrote a book called The Journey for Kids, Liberating Your Child's Shining Potential. And yes, it's been used in schools and especially, you're from South Africa originally, right? And we had all kinds of programs with the education department there, where I was teaching the teachers and the principals, everyone that was in charge in the school, the whole journey process. And they were going through, the year-long journey practitioner training to become journey practitioners. And they found a way to work with children in schools, getting incredible results with ADHD and children who were being violent. And there's a whole beautiful documentary shot on the results of doing the journey with kids in schools, from disorders where they're not able to read, reading disorders, to actual ADHD and ADD, and so it's kids that have had violent abuse in their own home. Obviously, they're not able to come then to school and to wholly give themselves and surrender at school because they're too shut down. And so the teachers got very skilled at using this, and a very inspiring and heart-rending and heart-opening documentary was shot on all the results. So yes, the children love this. They get it. As a matter of fact, a friend of mine, she's a journey practitioner, and her sons have grown up getting the journey work. And just recently, the friend had a trauma, that one of her sons had a trauma. And, he's 11 years old. And he said, Mommy, can we do that journey thing? So, they know they're going to get the result of feeling relief and at peace and whole and joyous. And so the work is, I have done, I've created work as well as those who are child psychologists and teachers have also added into all the work to create work that's specifically designed for children of all ages to really liberate them.
So, Brenton, as my final question, is there anything that I haven't asked you or that you have in your heart that you'd like to share?
Just that if this is resonating with you, please don't wait until something manifests as an illness down the line. Give yourself your wake-up call. Your soul wants you to heal. Your soul wants you to come home. Listen to that call. And what's so beautiful is the journey is now. I don't have to come around the world to you specifically. It's available online, the entire Journey Practitioner program, where we're working with you live. And you can get to a journey intensive. And not only do we do the teachings with you, but in the afternoons, every day, you get a journey process one-to-one with a fellow student. And you have a whole group of journey practitioners who are holding an embrace. You have any questions at all, anything arise that, oh, this is too scary to face, they go right in there. You've got expert support, so much support. And so if you get on thejourney.com, find out when they're happening close in your time zone, when the courses are happening. And of course, you can get a free download of an abridged version of the book, The Journey, or you can get it on Amazon. And just, I pray that this interview was an invitation, that you're worth it, that who you are is already free inside. Who you are is already whole. This love, your essence, this is yourself. And all that the journey does is it cannot give you who you are. That already is. But it can clear whatever blocks, whatever limits, whatever shuts down, whatever's put a lampshade over that presence of grace, that love that is your essence. So I pray you use this interview as a call home to yourself.
Well, Brenton, thank you so much for being with us today. I love you and I love all that you do in this world. So it's been such an honor.
Thank you, and big love to you, and big love to everyone who sees this. The heart.